Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another What I'm Reading Right Now video here on the channel. This is the series where I talk about what I have been reading, what I'm currently reading, and what I shall be reading next. What is going on with my hair today? I truly don't know. It's doing that you've just cut it short so it's not sure what's going on phase. We're not going to worry too much about it. I finished 3 books since last time we spoke. Let's get into it. First up, I finished my review copy of The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Whitten. This is the sequel to The Foxglove King. This is a necromancy fantasy series where we have a main character with hidden magic, death magic. This is book 2. I'm not going to get into the plot too much because I don't want to spoil book 1 for you. I liked it. I thought it was a good mix of very familiar fantasy tropey stuff with the slightly more modern takes on some of those tropes, particularly to do with kind of love triangle stuff. I thought there was some interesting stuff. Overall, I don't know that it's 100% a must read. It was better than I thought it was going to be because I haven't loved Hannah Whitten's previous stuff, but I wouldn't say I would rush out and buy myself a copy right now. I think possibly that's partly to do with the fact that I didn't do a reread of book 1. I think if I had, I would have had a better emotional payoff going into book 2. I'll still definitely read the 3rd one. I'll still finish the series. I just don't think it does anything particularly special that you couldn't get elsewhere. It's not a must read, but it was a good to read. I then finished my reread of A Power Unbound by Freya Marske. This was my first reread of this one. This is the 3rd book in the Last Binding trilogy. So we've had A Marvellous Light, A Restless Truth, and A Power Unbound. I have reviewed these, I'm pretty sure. I really like this series. I think it's a great time. This is probably the spiciest of all 3, for reasons that I can't get into without talking about the major spoilers of the book, but it is pretty up there. It's a good time. I liked it. I think the plot really landed for me, having read all 3, not back to back, but within the space of 3 weeks. I really like these characters. I really like the found family element that comes into this book. I think there's some interesting stuff around the relationship between book 2 and book 3 that I would probably get into if we were in a spoilery place, but we're not right now, so I'm going to keep going. But overall, a really good time. I think this series is one of the more rereadable series that I have read in the last 2 years, and for me, a person who loves to reread, rereadability is something that I absolutely look for. I've said reread too many times now. And the last thing that I finished is my audiobook review copy of Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is the 2nd book in the Locked Tomb trilogy. This was a reread. I had listened to it on audio before, I think, but I was happy to dive back in that way. I think this series is good. I still have very complicated feelings around it that I am going to talk to you about in a video about this series when I finish the 3rd one and in preparation for 2025 when we get the 4th one, probably. I just have a lot of feelings about it. I did like this. I thought it was a good reading experience, but it is noteworthy that it is my 3rd reading experience and that's the first time I've really felt that. I think that's noteworthy. I do love Harrow as a character though, so this book is always going to have a special place in my heart. My only current read at the moment, because I sort of took the weekend off a little bit, is Nona the Ninth, which is the next book in that series. How many far through am I that? How many far through am I that? Is what I just said to you, because I have good language skills. 11% of the way through. It's not making any sense, but I kind of expected it not to at this stage, so I'll keep going with that and we'll see where we get to. On to what I am planning on reading the rest of this week. Obviously, Nona is one that I will be working on throughout the week. I then have Autonomous by Annalee Newitt, which is a book about kind of big pharma, future dystopian kind of story. I've talked about it a fair amount on this channel, but it's been a long time since I read it. I believe I originally had a review copy. Feels like the reason I would have read it, but I don't know. And I'm looking forward to reading it again from a physical copy that truly I bought maybe 2 years ago, and I just haven't picked up the physical copy yet. The T. Kingfisher read-along continues. We'll be reading Sword Heart. I don't really know anything about this one. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now because I probably should. So we're returning to the world of Clockwork Boys, which will be confusing for those doing the read-along who haven't read Clockwork Boys, but that was how I structured it because I have read Clockwork Boys and it's my read-along. Sorry, everyone. I'm hoping it will still make sense, and if anything doesn't, we can always explain it to people, or they can jump about in the read-along and read Clockwork Boys first. It's an audiobook, so it'll probably be towards the end of the week when Nona is done. I'm also probably going to do what I did last week and prioritise reading my physical or digital but on Kindle review copy, which for me this week is The Sword Unbound by Gareth Hanrahan. This is an over 500 page, nearly 600 page fantasy, so I probably should get going on it and try and read as much of it as possible today, just to get a head start on myself. This is a continuation of Gareth Hanrahan's series about vengeance and what happens to people after the end of the fantasy book, and I loved book one. I have a review up for it. I'm really excited to pick up book 2. 2 new books have come onto my virtual and or real shelves in the last week or so. I have The Undermining of Twyla and Frank by Megan Bannon. That is out in July, and it is a sequel. It's not, I don't think it is a sequel. I don't even know if it is the same universe, but it is by the same author, and the cover is in the same style as The Undertaking of what is it? The Undertaking of something and Mercy. Heart and Mercy. There we go. I knew it was a one-word thing. I loved The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. I really ought to do a reread of it because I just remember reading it at 3 a.m. and having the best time. So I have a lot of hope for The Undermining of Twyla and Frank, which is apparently a When Harry Met Sally, but there are dragons story. So I'm very interested in it. Please and thank you. And the other book is a physical book, which doesn't happen very often anymore, but I have a copy of The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. This is a fantasy romance. I think it's fairly light-hearted. We have a character who ends up choosing to be the Honey Witch, but no one can fall in love with the Honey Witch. But then there's a girl who doesn't believe in magic, and maybe we can beat that and sort that all out, perhaps. Is my battery about to go? Yes, it is. So I'm going to quickly shift battery. 1 second. The battery has shifted. This segues us neatly into new releases because it is also the only new release on my list this week, which means there is a part of me that really wants to pick this up now and say no to The Sword Unbound, but The Sword Unbound is already out. So I need to read that and get the review up. So this is probably going to be next week's review copy. I don't know for sure. I had a very lovely week last week. Lots of nice things. A nice trip into Oxford over the weekend to see a dear old friend. We had the most delicious garlic flatbread I've ever had. Honestly, it was amazing. And I think other than that, I've been trying to do some gardening. I've been trying to get our garden under control. That's been my newest thing that I've been up to. But what about you? What have you been reading? What have you been up to? Let me know down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I'd like to say an enormous thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams and more. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you so much to you for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. This is a over 500 page and nearly 600... Oh, got myself in the face. This is my neat segue into new releases because this is the only new release on my list for this week. Luna, no.